Good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling to order the House Committee on Consumer Protection and Commerce. It is Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023, 2 p.m. We are in conference room 329. We have a number of items on the agenda today, so we'll be limiting testimony to 2 minutes. For those who are on Zoom, please mute yourself and turn your video off until it is your turn to testify. If you are having troubles, you could use the chat function to contact our IT staff and they will help you. First on the agenda, we have SB 696 SD1 HD1 relating to workers' compensation. First to testify on this measure, we have Jade Butai from the Hawaii Department of Labor and Industrial Relations here in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Joanne Vittenhard, Department of Labor. We stand on our written testimony and support and are here to, if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers we have. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to SB 839 SD2 HD1 relating to renewable energy. First to testify on this measure, we have Dean Nishina, Acting Executive Director for DCCA, Division of Consumer Advocacy, with comments.
Aloha and good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Dean Nishina with the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We stand on our written testimony offering comments, available for questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have Leo Sunshin, Chair for the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Steve Mariani, analyst on behalf of the Chair and the Public Utilities Commission. We stand on our written testimony and are here to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Rebecca Dehuff Matsushima from the Hawaiian Electric in opposition.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Dehuff Matsushima on behalf of Hawaiian Electric in opposition of SB 839. The preamble of this bill raises concerns about the high electricity costs that our customers are facing. Yet the bill goes on to add many administrative and other functions that would add to the cost of our electric customers' bills. This cost would be added at no extra benefit for our customers, as many of the items addressed in this bill are already being addressed and fixed by the Public Utilities Commission and Hawaiian Electric. Act 201 from last year's legislature requires the PUC to do a study on the interconnection process and cost. This study is only halfway completed, and instituting this bill before completion of the study would be premature. Hawaiian Electric has completely revamped its interconnection process in its stage 3 RFPs, which are open currently, including committing to a 10-month timeline to complete the interconnection requirement study, which is faster than is currently being done even on the mainland. The PUC, through its performance-based regulation docket, has also implemented performance incentive mechanisms and other mechanisms to track the cost and time for interconnection, as well as the current RPS statute already provides penalties if the utility were not to meet its renewable energy requirements. The PUC has hired an independent engineer to oversee interconnection of the Stage 3 projects moving forward, and the PUC already has the authority to determine who pays for interconnection costs and the requirements for interconnection. Further, the bill does not address delays caused by force majeure, the developers that are building the projects, or delays by other third parties such as permitting agencies. These have been the main reasons for delays in the Stage 1 and Stage 2 projects. So this bill would really serve no purpose to improve the issues that we've been seeing beyond what the Commission and the Hawaiian Electric Utilities are already doing, and would only serve as a vehicle to add additional costs to our customers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to testify, we have Tina Yamaki from Retail Merchants of Hawaii in opposition.
Aloha and good afternoon. Yes, we are opposed to this measure. Let's call it what it really is. It's just a new tax under the guise of a fee or increased cost of doing business. And what's going to happen is retailers on measures like this are going to pass the prices down to our customers, and it's going to be increasing the cost of all of our food, clothing, electronics, anything that you buy, and essentially it's going to increase the cost of living in Hawaii, making it even more expensive to live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, any questions?
Yeah. Hawaii Electric. Go. Yeah. On the phase 2 of the interconnection process, when will that be complete and a report available?
I'll actually defer to the Commission.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So if you're referring to the Phase 2 of the Act 201 study,
Yes.
we anticipate filing that in the same timeline that the first phase was filed, so no later than 20 days prior to the 2024 legislative session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then, secondly, you understand that there was a study of lost savings conducted when proposed renewable energy projects were not complete? How much was that amount?
It wasn't a study. The commission has required the utilities to track the cost from the original commercial operations date to when the projects actually reach in service. I don't have the number here. We can provide it to you after. But I would note that that tracking mechanism also does not take into account force majeure or developer delays, and all of those things would have to be looked at after the projects reach in service.
Okay, if you can provide that to
Yes,
the
we
chair,
will.
and I'll share it with the committee.
We will.
Okay, thank you. And then, that's it?
Okay.
PUC? In its testimony, DCCA indicated the PUC recently provided incentives for expedited completion of renewable energy projects.
That's correct.
What are those incentives?
So we went, in the last hearing, we expressed some of these, the details. So based on the timing of the interconnection studies that are conducted by Hawaiian Electric, based on the project size of the Stage 3 projects that are soon to be, Hawaiian Electric will soon to be accepting bids. It's a $20 per megawatt hour dollar value that it gets assigned to the energy potential of each project. So it's proportional to the size of those projects. And then from that number that's calculated based on the megawatt hours from the project, based on the speed of the study, which is built around a 10-month target, if the study is completed before the 10 months, there is a percentage based on the speed that it's completed that is apportioned to that total. So in a ballpark, if you had 100,000 megawatt hour project that gets completed ahead of time, you're looking at in the 100,000 range as a reward for coming in ahead of that 10-month target. And if it takes longer than 10 months, or excuse me, if it takes longer than 12 months to complete that study, there would be a financial penalty in that same ballpark that extends up to 24 months beyond that. So again, in the ballpark of the hundreds of thousands of dollar penalty for Hawaiian Electric. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to the next item, SB 1534, SD2 HD1, relating to transportation. First to testify on this measure, we have Mark Glick, Chief Energy Officer for the Hawaii State Energy Office, in support.
Aloha mai kākou. My name is Kiana Otsuka, and I'm here on behalf of the Hawaii State Energy Office, and we stand on our written testimony, and I'm available for questions if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ed Sniffen, Director for the Department of Transportation, with comments.
Thank you, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Sayama, and members of the committee. Tammy Lee, the Acting Deputy Director for the Department of Transportation. We stand on our written testimony in support with comments, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Micah Munekata from the Ulupono Initiative, in support. Seeing that they're not here, we'll be moving on to Tom Yamachika from the Tax Foundation of Hawaii with comments.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We will stand on our written testimony and be available for questions.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Seeing none. We'll be moving on to SB 63, SD2 HD1, relating to nurses. First to testify on this measure, we have Esther Brown from the Enforcement Officer from Regulated Industries Compliant Office with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Rachel stands on its testimony offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Chelsea Fukunaga, Executive Officer from the Board of Nursing, in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Sayama, members of the committee. My name is Leanne Tashima. I'm also Executive Officer for the Board of Nursing. So on behalf of Ms. Fukunaga and the Board of Nursing, you have our written testimony. However, we understand that there are changes being proposed from other testifiers. We are amicable to the recommendations from the Hawaii Healthcare Association of Hawaii, in which they want to insert language that a temporary permit shall be issued within 10 business days of the date the application is received by the board. We would like further clarification to indicate that a complete application is received by the board. In order to implement this, we also request that changes be made to the requirements regarding or referring to an unencumbered license to clarify that the license in the other state is, or country or jurisdiction is not disciplined or pending disciplinary action. And we can get you that language. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Amy Thomas, Hawaii Pacific Health, with comments on Zoom.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. This is Mike Wilkinson on behalf of Amy Thomas, who couldn't be here today. We stand on our written testimony, and we also welcome and support Board of Nursing's amendments, as well as the ones that we provided in our comments. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next, we have Jace Mikulani. Mikulanik. I'm sorry. From the Queens Health System, in support.
Thanks, Vice Chair. We're supportive of this legislation. Appreciate you hearing it, and also are amenable to the amendments discussed by Board of Nursing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jonathan Ching from Kaiser Permanente, in support.
Chair, Vice Chair, Jonathan Ching for Kaiser Permanente. We also stand in support and support the amendments offered by the Healthcare Association, but also the clarifying technical amendments by the Board of Nursing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Hilton Rathel from the Healthcare Association of Hawaii, in support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to testify. Presidency of the Healthcare Association of Hawaii. We're very appreciative of the opportunity to work with the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs and the Board of Nursing on this bill. We do support fully the comments that you just heard from Leanne about inserting that one word about a complete application, and we also support the clarifying amendment about in regard to the license that the nurse does have in another state. So thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next, we have Laura Reichart from the Hawaii State Center for Nursing, in support.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Reichart. I'm the director of the Hawaii State Center for Nursing. I'd just like to first offer a clarification to my testimony. Please note that the testimony I have is in support, and then there is an accidental attachment of previous proposed amendments. The clarity I would like to provide, in addition, is that we are in strong support of the proposed amendments as introduced by the Board of Nursing, as well as the Healthcare Association and Hawaii Pacific Health. In talking to the statewide nurse leaders over the past 2 years, recruitment is increasingly a challenge, and the need to respond in a nimble way to the changing workforce environment is really dependent on that licensure approval process. And this is a very strong initiative, and it will be critical to have this measure move forward. The 10-day addition with the clarifications that the Board of Nursing provided will be critical, not just for recruitment, but also for maintaining high-quality patient care and the well-being of our local nursing workforce. So this is just a really well-composed initiative overall. I'm really proud of all of our state partners, and I just want to recognize the great work that they've done as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, we'll be moving on then to SB 239 SD2 HD1 relating to early learning accreditation. First to testify on this measure, we have Kathy Betts, Director for the Department of Human Services, with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members. Scott Morishiga, Administrator for the Benefit, Employment, and Support Services Division on behalf of DHS and our Director, Kathy Betts. DHS stands in our testimony offering comments, requests clarification on a few items, and suggests clarifying amendments. Specifically, DHS respectfully requests amendments in Section 2 from page 2, lines 20 to 21 to page 3, lines 1 to 2 to clarify the types of licensed and registered childcare settings that the accreditation program would be available to. Also, given the continuing economic impacts of COVID-19 and childcare facilities' ability to maintain staffing levels, DHS suggests amendments to Section HRS Section 346-184A to change the accreditation requirement to be voluntary until the childcare workforce is stabilized. In addition, we recommend the appropriation toward grants to childcare providers participating in the accreditation program include the cost for providers with annual accreditation fees and a one-time system modification fee. Finally, DHS requests an effective date of January 31, 2024 or later to allow time to develop administrative rules and make necessary system modifications. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Next we have Kyopu Relitz from the Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kyopu Relitz, Director of Early Learning and Health Policy for the Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks. We stand in strong support of this measure. Just want to note that as the law is written currently, existing unaccredited preschool providers participating in the Preschool Open Doors program will have, I think, just shy of 18 months at this point. I think it's less than 18 months to start the accreditation process, and it's a very expensive, time-consuming process. And so we want to make sure that there is programming and financial support so that they can go through this. So one of the things that we are looking for with this bill is either to make it voluntary or to move the timeline backwards. Here to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your time. Aloha.
Thank you. Next we have Philip Bozert from the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair and members of the committee. I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools, and we stand in strong support of this bill and as it's written. I do want to make a few clarifying remarks on issues that have come up in the past hearings. One is that HAIS since 1996 has been accrediting licensing all private schools in the state on behalf of the state using the state's guidelines. There's currently 114 private schools across all the islands. 50 of those are also accredited by HAIS in cooperation with the Western Accrediting Association of Schools and Colleges. 59 of our schools have preschools attached to them, and they all have to be licensed, and part of that licensing, if they're a preschool, is that they have to be licensed also by DHS. And our accreditation protocol is equivalent to, if not better than, we think, NAYC. And what we're asking is that instead of forcing our 59 schools to also go through an additional accreditation, that DHS simply recognize our accreditation for those schools. We don't want any money from DHS or the state for that accreditation process, and we don't want to get involved in accrediting any other preschools. We simply want to prevent our schools from having, as the previous person mentioned, it's a very long and demanding process in both cases, ours as well as NAYC. And so we don't want to double up on them. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next we have Linda Elinado, individual in opposition on Zoom. Not present, okay. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, any questions?
I have a question.
Please go ahead.
I have a question for Mr. Bosert. I'm curious, how much does it cost to go through the accreditation process?
So it doesn't cost our school, if they're members and they already pay us dues, it doesn't cost our schools anything to go through that process. But it's a 2-year process that involves a self-study and visiting teams and follow-up, and then every year a follow-up.
I see. So another question, if a member decides not to continue paying the dues for whatever reason, do they then lose their accreditation as well?
Yes. Well, I take that back. They would lose accreditation by HAIS, but it's co-accredited by WASC. So they would keep the accreditation by WASC until their next visit is due.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Members, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to SB 113 SD2 HD1 relating to the labeling of products. First to testify on this measure, we have Dennis Ling from DBED in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Dennis Ling for DBED. DBED stands in support of this bill as stated in its late revised testimony, and we apologize for the late revision. Specifically, Section 2 of the first paragraph, where reference is made to Made in Hawaii, should be changed to Hawaii Made to be consistent with the rest of the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have Sharon Hurd from Department of Agriculture with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sharon Hurd, Department of Agriculture. With the pre-stated revisions just made by DBET, we will continue to comment but highlight the section that amends Section 201-3.5 that HRS refers to the Hawaii Made brand, where DBET promotes and markets non-perishable goods, and note that there is no enforcement provision in this section. Enforcement can be optional for a brand focused on promoting and marketing products broadly. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there any questions?
Sure.
Representative Onishi.
Yes, for DBED. Hi, Dennis. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Rep. Onishi.
So there is a current Made in Hawaii Made program.
There is a Hawaii Made program under 201-16, I believe it is.
Administered by DBED.
Administered by DBED. Well, promoted by DBED. And because we are promoting it, we do administer it.
Okay, so are there any enforcement
No.
provisions?
There's no enforcement provisions because DBED is not a regulatory agency, and we have no powers of citation powers or hearings powers or any of those sort of powers.
So, and there's no standard.
And we follow the standard that has been designated by the Department of Agriculture for the Made in Hawaii. But this bill also calls for the inclusion of additional operating expenses and overhead expenses to be included.
Which is not part of the Made in Hawaii.
That's correct.
So we would have two different programs administered by two different departments with different standards.
Yes, essentially that's the way it is written in statute. And what we hope to do is, in the future, consolidate the program into one program.
Okay, and so the funding that's being asked for is to continue to just promote.
That's correct.
So is this an admin bill?
This is not an admin bill.
Okay. So I'm having a hard time trying to understand why the state would have two different programs and with two different sets of criteria, which in essence promotes the same concept.
Correct. This Hawaii Made was established by the legislature, and it was not promoted or put forth by the administration.
So, in your opinion, shouldn't this bill look at incorporating both programs into one program?
I agree.
Would you recommend do the enforcement of the program?
Well, I do not want to mention a specific agency because there could be several agencies that might do it. We can't recommend.
Okay. Chair, if I might ask the Department of Ag to come up.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Dennis. Hi, Sharon. Thank you
Okay,
for being here.
Representative.
So you heard my questions
I
to Dennis. So again, my question, does it make sense for the state to have two different programs with different criteria, basically trying to accomplish the same thing, which is to have only products that are manufactured in Hawaii be able to be labeled as either made in Hawaii or Hawaii made?
Good question. The answer is yes. And the reason it makes sense is because 486-119, the program that was assigned to the Department of Agriculture, has to do with the logo. 486-119 gives products the authority to use a logo that says made in Hawaii with Aloha or grown in Hawaii with Aloha. So those two trademark logos are covered under the 486-119. The provisions that govern it by statute is 51% of the inputs have to be put in locally, does not include overhead, does not include labor, okay? So it's basically a logo that was purchased a long time ago, trademarked a long time ago, and so the provisions are different. Enforcement lies with the Department of Agriculture for use of the logo. It's just a different program.
So who does the enforcement of the Department of Ag program?
The Quality Assurance Division has been tasked with the duties of enforcement. And we pretty much go by complaints. It is a complaint-driven type of enforcement.
So you do have enforcement capability?
Yes, we do.
So if we were to join both programs and have DBED do the promotional portion of both, and the department do the enforcement?
When I testified earlier, I said that with the amendments made, I made my comments. I think it is very difficult for one department to have the administration of a particular program and then another department have the responsibility of enforcement. Because in one case, it means that the one department can make, changes that.
Well, that's not what I'm asking. I'm
Okay.
asking that DBED do the promotional aspect of Hawaii made or made in Hawaii, which isn't administrative, it's promotional, marketing. And the Department of Ag actually do the enforcement part, the regulatory part, which is to investigate complaints, to follow up with whether the product is actually meets the standard.
We would oppose that.
You would oppose that? And under what grounds?
The department that has the program should enforce the program.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, that the
It is-
department do the enforcement.
True, that would be then DBED.
But DBED says they don't do any enforcement.
In my testimony, I stated with such a broad criteria for eligibility, using labor and rent and overhead expenses to make up 51%, they would pretty much qualify, whether or not that particular product was manufactured here, with all the criteria, it would be pretty broad, and the eligibility would be so vast that it probably wouldn't require enforcement.
Well, and therein lies the issue, right? You have two different programs, two different criteria that essentially is promoting the same concept.
The concept, but we're promoting the logo, the sticker. It's the concept.
I fully understand.
Okay,
It's a concept, okay?
It's the concept.
So anyway, Yeah, okay, that's okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
thank you.
Yes, Representative Lowen.
Thanks, Department of Agriculture.
Representative.
So the two different programs, Made in Hawaii and Grown in Hawaii, they're not the same, or are they the same?
The DBET chapter and the Department of Ag chapter, they're not the same. Ours governs the use of a logo. You fill out an application form, and then we send you the image via email. You're welcome to put it on your products. The classic is Aloha Tofu. They don't have any soybeans here. We don't grow it.
Wait, sorry, you said there was two choices to do, like.
Oh, the Made in Hawaii and the Grown in
with
Hawaii?
Aloha, or Grown in Hawaii
Mhm.
with Aloha?
So if to get the Made in Hawaii, it's a 51% inputs, but there's a formula. Grown in Hawaii is simply to go out there and see that it's grown in Hawaii, and then they get authority to use the sticker.
So 100%.
100%.
Okay, got it. That
Okay,
makes sense.
thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. Members, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to SB 745. 745 SD1 HD1 relating to agriculture. First to testify on this measure, we have Sharon Hurd, chairperson for the Hawaii Department of Agriculture, in support.
Good afternoon again, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Sharon Hurd, Department of Agriculture. We support this measure and note that the request is for the appropriation of funds to hire one full-time measurement standards inspector at the cost of about $100,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Representative Onishi.
Chair, Department of Ag.
Representative.
So the department currently enforces the 10% blend for coffee,
We enforce the labeling, yes.
the labeling,
Mhm.
right? Which means you're enforcing that standard.
That would be a yes.
Okay, so my concern is who administers that
The
enforcement?
Quality Assurance Division.
And so this now only adds that if somebody is saying that a product is from Hawaii and there are products that are not, the coffee is not from Hawaii, that they're subject to a fine.
I believe this is including, this bill is to include roasted coffee.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But basically, it's just expanding
Yeah, yes.
the enforcement criteria,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
So if you're currently doing it, why do you need another body?
Oh, because running through the legislature and the bills right now, the other labeling enforcement bills include hemp, mamaki tea, macadamia nuts, and coffee as well. Did I forget one?
And do all of them have a request for another full-time employee?
I think they all do. Maybe hemp has two, because for hemp, we have a processing one as well as a,
So you're talking about adding 4 or 5
It all
more
depends.
staff?
Good question. It all depends on at the end of the session, how many of these bills actually become law. If none of them become law, then we don't need any of them. But if all of them become law, then we would probably need.
But this you're currently doing, the
yes,
enforcement of coffee labeling.
but not the roasted. Come up. May I bring Leo up?
Thank you for that question, Representative Bonisi. Leo Baldo, Department of Agriculture. Yeah, we're doing enforcement like what the chair said, enforcement by complaint, because right now we don't really have any capability of enforcing labeling. We don't have that capability anymore that we used to have during the previous administrations. We lost that, and we're trying to rebuild that capability because of all these labeling bills that are coming out. So we would be more interested in bringing in that specialty to help us address all the labeling bills that are currently in progress with this legislature.
So how much current staff are you allocated in your branch?
We're looking at, initially we were asking for one, but with all this.
No, how many exist now?
We have 10.
And how many vacancies do you have?
So we have one that just retired. We have 3 vacancies. Inspector.
So you have 3 inspector vacancies.
Yes.
And you're asking for another inspector.
That's
position.
dedicated for, just to clarify, measurement standards branch is not only doing labeling. We do enforcement of gas pump meters, all the meter scales, gas pumps, or any measuring devices, including, taximeters. So those are responsibilities that are actually taking a lot of the time of the current inspectors, but we do have to request for the capability to address labeling inspection, because we haven't been doing that, which is becoming more of an issue to the consumers.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Any further questions?
No.
Okay, members, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on then. Looking at SB 717 SD1 relating to alcohol. First to testify on this, is there anyone here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to SB 687 relating to intoxicating liquor. First to testify on this measure, we have Jennifer D. Waihi Polk or Brian C. Yee, Deputy Attorney General from the Attorney General's Office with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima and Vice Chair Sayama and members of the committee. Deputy Attorney General Jennifer Waihi Polk on behalf of the Department of the Attorney General. We have submitted written testimony with comments about our concerns that amending HRS Section 28131R will require licensees to by amending that to require licensees to manufacture their liquor products in the state would subject this bill to constitutional challenge as discriminating against out-of-state manufacturers. And to avoid constitutional challenge, we recommend that Section 1 of the bill on page 1, line 5, be revised to remove "in the state." And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to SB 1447 SD1 relating to tobacco. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Nishi. Okay, this is on SB 687.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be returning to that. Representative Nishi, please go ahead.
Yeah. Attorney General's Office. So your testimony basically would change this bill to the products could be manufactured anywhere in the U.S.?
I think that's what we're just taking. So currently, as it's written, it just says that they'll manufacture this amount. So we're adding "in the state." So we are just recommending not adding "in the state."
So it could be manufactured anywhere in the U.S.?
Yes, and because it would be the same as it's written currently.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any further questions? This is on SB 687. Seeing none, we'll be moving on to SB 1447 SD1 relating to tobacco products. First to testify on this measure, we have Kenneth Fink, Director for the Department of Health and Support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Jill Thomas-Schur on behalf of Dr. Fink of the department. We stand on our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Laverne Moore from the Hawaii State Teachers Association in support.
Aloha, Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of Osatui Jr., President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. The Hawaii State Teachers Association supports this bill, and we stand on our testimony that has a lot of data. I'm going to tell you the teacher's story. Teachers have had it. Our hands are full. You folks need to help us. It is horrible in the classroom when you have students who are vapors and they're not being present. They have such disruptive behavior. They're impulsive. They leave the classroom whenever they want to leave the classroom. And we are responsible for educating them. This has been going on for over 6 years, and it's worse now. Now we have kindergarteners who are vaping, elementary students vaping, middle, high school. Legislators, when are you going to ban flavored tobacco? And when are you going to do something to make it productive so that we teachers in the classroom can teach without disruptive students? They have such erratic behavior. They walk in and out whenever they want to. They have high absence, and it's drastic. So the teachers are telling me, just tell the story, Laverne. And we should not continue letting the big tobacco business make money off our hearts and health and lungs of our students. So I have delivered their message. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next we have Hawaii State Association of Counties in support on Zoom. Not present? Too bad. Okay. Next we have Tina Yamaki from Retail Merchants of Hawaii in opposition.
Aloha. Yes, we are in opposition of this measure because measures like this could lead to a double taxation in the guise of fees and other operational restrictions and add-on costs. If this measure is to deter youth from obtaining smoking or vaping products, then the focus should be on cracking down on those who are legally, intentionally letting minors obtain these products. Retailers do not sell to minors. They're getting it from their family, friends, and older people that they know. And we don't go. If we have somebody come in with an older person and they ask the minor, which vape product do you want? We do not sell to them. You know, many whom are underage are obtaining cigarettes, like I said, from older people, or they're purchasing them on the black market. It's easy to do. And we wonder why there are not more restrictor laws and consequences aimed at the minors who are vaping or those who are purchasing products for the minors and making them more accountable for their actions. Why is the Department of Education not cracking down on those who vape on campus if so many students are doing this? And we've heard from some of our people who work in our stores who are in high school that teachers and security turn a blind eye to those who are vaping on campus because they don't want to deal with it. And why are adults who legally can purchase these items might be denied if it is aimed at minors? Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Don Weisman from the American Heart Association in support.
Aloha, Vice Chair Sayama and Chair Nakashima, members of the committee. I'm Don Weisman, Government Relations and Communications and Marketing Director for American Heart Association Hawaii Division, and we stand strongly in support of this bill. This bill would amend a law passed in 2018, basically correcting what shouldn't have happened. If in 2018, this clause that preempts our counties from taking action on these types of issues was added in the final days of the legislative session to a kidney dialysis funding bill. Today, that wouldn't be allowed by the Ethics Commission. And the bill never got any public hearings because it happened in the very final moments. So this would correct that, what I call an error. Because it was in a dialysis funding bill, we couldn't even attempt to try to kill the bill with the governor because it would have killed dialysis patients. So the tobacco industry was very crafty in how they inserted this into the legislation. And make no mistake, this was tobacco industry driven. They've been trying for many, many years to preempt our counties because our counties have proven successful at addressing home rule issues. The smoke-free air laws that we enjoy today started county by county. All 4 counties passed laws or ordinances before the state took action and set a high ceiling that that we all enjoy now. But it wasn't until the counties showed that the sky wasn't going to fall on our heads that the legislature here was willing to take that on. And we have an epidemic that we're dealing with our kids, as you've heard. We need action, and it's been how many years now, and this legislature has not been able to pass effective legislation to address the problem. we think the counties are poised to do that if they're given the opportunity again. So we strongly ask that you support this measure and return home rule to our county governments and the local communities that wish to try to address these major problems in their communities. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next we have Cynthia Au from the American Cancer Society of Cancer Action Network in support.
Thank you, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Sayama, and committee members. Cynthia Au on behalf of the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in strong support of Senate Bill 1447 SD1 relating to tobacco products. This year, approximately 8,460 residents of Hawaii will be diagnosed with cancer. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in Hawaii, with 2,500 deaths each year, and 1,400 adults will die from smoking every year. 21,000 kids today will eventually die from smoking-related diseases, and lung cancer remains the leading cause of cancer deaths in Hawaii, in Hawaii. Allowing counties' ability to quickly address the unique needs of their communities results in better overall health, not only locally, but for the state as a whole. After many years by the state to work on trying to decrease youth use, the state should consider allowing the county's local control on these issues, provided that the ordinances are more stringent than the provisions in state law that govern smoking and no longer preempt counties from making decisions on the health of their communities. Mahalo for the ability to testify on this very important measure. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next to testify, we have Valerie Chang from Hawaii COPD Coalition in support on Zoom.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. I echo what the Department of Health and American Heart Association and American Cancer Society have said. This is really important to allow counties the ability to address the needs of their individual counties and to pilot things that might really help in stemming this terrible epidemic of youth vaping. We already have over 45,000 Hawaii adults that have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. We really don't need young people with it as well, or other conditions like asthma from the exposure to all of these toxic things. I urge this committee to please pass SB 1447 SD1 and make this become law. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Elizabeth Hicks from the Consumer Choice Center in opposition on Zoom.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Hicks from the Consumer Choice Center. This bill is going to do more harm than good if passed. Encouraging local governments to pass harmful regulations on reduced risk nicotine products like vapes will push many former smokers to switch back to smoking combustible tobacco. Tragically, 1,400 Hawaiians lose their lives to smoking-related illnesses every year, but considering that studies have shown vaping to be 95% less harmful than smoking, ensuring that adult consumers have access to these products will ultimately lead to fewer cigarette smoking-related deaths within Hawaii. More than 100,000 Hawaiians use vaping products, and according to data from Hawaii Journal of Medicine and Public Health, the largest demographic of Hawaiian vapers are actually 65 years and older in age and started vaping as a means to quit smoking combustible cigarettes. This bill was created to address the so-called youth vaping epidemic, but I'm happy to tell you that according to the CDC's National Youth Tobacco Survey, less than 1 in 10 U.S. students reported vaping in 2022, and even the FDA has declared they are no longer using the term youth vaping epidemic because it is no longer an accurate depiction of reality. Forbidding local governments from implementing smart harm reduction policies and encouraging them to further regulate this area through flavor bans, taxes, and limits on nicotine levels and others will lead former smokers to switch back to smoking the combustible cigarettes, or they will look to the illicit market to find their preferred vaping products. This is concerning as these products will be unregulated and the illicit market does not verify age, making it much easier for youth to acquire these products illegally. And we know smoking-related illnesses are serious and can lead to cancer. And on a personal note, after being around secondhand smoke for most of my life, I received my own cancer diagnosis this last year, undergoing chemo, radiation, immunotherapy, multiple surgeries. I can assure you I would not wish this on anyone. And assuming that you wouldn't either, it's imperative that you embrace vaping vaping as a harm reduction tool for adults and ensure that Hawaii's policies allow these products to stay on the market to help prevent your citizens from ending up in a situation similar to mine. I'll wrap up with this. Ultimately, forbidding localities from enacting their own smart harm reduction policies is simply misguided, as the unintended consequences would only exacerbate the problem that Hawaii is trying to fix. Therefore, I respectfully urge you to vote against SB 1447. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next we have Tim Andrews from the Americans for Tax Reform in opposition on Zoom.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to present to the committee, and thank you for your time. On behalf of our members and supporters across the state of Hawaii, we strongly oppose this measure for 2 reasons. First of all, it goes contrary to the principles of good government and good public administration, and secondly, it is contrary to the principles of public health. On the first of these reasons, good government requires transparency, accountability, and not having a patchwork of mismatched regulations across an entire state. For an issue where we know there is a serious problem with black markets, we know that there is a serious issue with youth access, having a mishmash of state regulations and also having counties without any transparency, scrutiny, or accountability is contrary to the principles of good public policy and good administration. Secondly, this is also something that could potentially harm public health in the state of Hawaii. In contrast to what certain testifiers in favor of this bill have said, we now have evidence from the FDA. We have evidence from multiple academic studies that vaping isn't actually used by kids to the extent that was said, but rather is a harm reduction smoking cessation tool used by adults. The Center of Tobacco Control at the FDA, Dr. Brian King, has said, we don't use the term youth epidemic anymore. He said this last week. He also said, this is a really important smoking harm cessation tool. The best academic analysis of hundreds of studies has shown these products are 95% safer than combustible cigarettes and save lives. Georgetown University did the academic modeling and said, if a majority of Americans switch from smoking to vaping, this will save 6.6 million lives. This translates to tens of thousands of lives in the state of Hawaii. This isn't me just make up these numbers. These are the actual academic
Can you
evidence.
please summarize your testimony?
And my testimony simply wishes to conclude that we have harm reduction products that are known to save lives. This is according to the FDA, according to the Center for Tobacco Control, according to all of the academic evidence. And please don't deprive adult smokers through a mishmash of,
Thank you
just
for your
letting local
testimony,
governments
Mr.
back.
Andrews. We'll be moving on to Myung-O Hawaii Energy Marketers Association in opposition.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Myung-O testifying on behalf of actually 3 companies. It's Aloha Petroleum, it is Minute Stop, and Heligas. We are in opposition to this measure. If it is all right, we enforce the regulation of age-limited products such as tobacco, alcohol, very strict. There's a lot of training that goes into it. And quite frankly, if varying operation and regulatory enforcement of each counties is implemented, such as this bill, it is going to create further employee issues, whether or not it's training, whether or not it's limited staffing. It will add on to the burden of training employees because they do operate across the islands. One thing to consider also is the potential for, I wouldn't say a ripple effect, but if this is implemented, it wouldn't be too far behind where alcohol would be also regulated through the counties as well. And I appreciate the home rule issue, but giving authority to the counties would create loosening additional burdens for the state in terms of regulating these products. So thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next we have Peggy Mirzo from the Hawaii Public Health Institute in support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Peggy Mirza with the Hawaii Public Health Institute. We stand in strong support of this measure. In 2018, the counties lost their ability to regulate tobacco products at the point of sale, and since then, no meaningful statewide e-cigarette policy has been passed. This bill simply restores the county's ability to pass policies that would regulate tobacco at the point of sale. For 5 years, the Youth Council has prioritized ending the sale of flavored tobacco products, and no bill has passed. This year again, that bill is likely going nowhere as it has not had its hearing to make the lateral deadline. Senate Bill 1447 would give the counties back the power to pass policies that could end the sale of flavored tobacco products. The counties have always been forward-thinking in their tobacco policies. They have passed responsible, reasonable, and public health-minded policies to keep their communities safe. In fact, Hawaii Island was the 4th jurisdiction in the nation to pass Tobacco 21, and the counties led the way on smoke-free air laws. Counties want to keep their communities safe. They want to keep their kids safe. They have shown they can pass responsible policies that work. And because counties have shown they are effective and responsible, 89% of registered voters in a poll done by Ward in 2022 said that the counties should be able to enact stricter policies to keep those youth safe. And I just, want to say that there are, in response to some confusion, there are places that have different policies at the state, county, and municipal levels, and it has not created chaos and confusion. So this is just restoring power back to our counties. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Lindsay Freitas from Tobacco Free Kids in Support on Zoom.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. I'm Lindsay Freitas with the Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids here in strong support of this bill. SB 1447 would protect youth from tobacco addiction, save lives, and advance health equity by allowing Hawaii communities to enact their own targeted tobacco control solutions. Passage would make state law the floor for tobacco control regulations rather than retain provisions that establish state law as the ceiling. Now, more than ever, we see the need for this policy as once again, failed attempts at the legislature to adopt flavor restrictions are going nowhere. More than 300 places across the country have enacted policies similar to this, and we have not seen mass chaos, we have not seen mass store closures. I remind everybody that this policy simply returns this authority to the local communities, and for that reason, it is crucial that we pass this policy now so that more Hawaii youth do not become victims to big tobacco. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have, Pedro Harrow from the American Lung Association in Hawaii in support. Not present, we'll be moving on to Dawn Kurisu from the Hawaii Medical Services Association in support. Thank you. Next we have Julian Lipsher, individual in support.
Chair, Vice Chair, members, I'm Julian Lipsher, testifying as a private citizen in strong support. First, apologies for the typo, but it is indisputable science-based fact that smoking cigarettes and tobacco use and use of nicotine remain the leading cause of death and disease in Hawaii. And despite this, tobacco companies have strategized numerous ways to delay and to deflect implementation of sound public health policies. They question the science. They quarrel with the implementation. They contribute to the campaigns of candidates running for elected office. Yet their influence has been blunted at the county level, where elected officials are closer to the voters and problems are more clearly recognized. So how does the industry get around this obstacle that thwarts their profits? The answer is preemption. They promote the passage of laws where the state occupies the entire field of regulation, where local voices and county councils are taken out of the picture. Turning back the clock to over a decade ago, the state legislature had not acted on bills to protect citizens from exposure to secondhand smoke. In a relatively short time, all the Hawaii counties, all 5 of them, passed forms of protective measures. This effort demonstrated the need and the popularity for state action, and a comprehensive state law was subsequently enacted that we all enjoy the benefits from today. Now the issue is vaping. It's been almost a decade without action. We know the counties will act. The industry knows the counties will act. And as we've heard, preemption was introduced and passed in 2018. Repealing preemption would restore local control, allow local voices to be more readily heard, and the county councils to be able to take action to protect the public's health when action at the state level has stalled. I urge the committee to consider the policy implications and pass this bill. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Next we have Valentino Miranda Kepa, individual in opposition on Zoom. Not present. We'll be moving on to John Rotuno, individual in opposition on Zoom. John, are you there?
Hold on 1 second here. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for listening to me. My name is John Rotuno. I am a retired ATF DEA agent, 35 years on the job. My expertise was in Colombian drug cartels and open air street gang tactics. I've been qualified in both state and federal court as being a gang crimes expert. I'm listening to all these people speaking, and I have to say that things are quite different now than they were when I was a young kid. And I come from a family of school teachers, and I am a school teacher now myself. And I'm going to give you my opinion based on my experience, and that being that I think that you're going in the right direction. However, I feel that the laws and the regulations that you want to put in place, though they have good intentions, they're really not going to work because there's a hunger for the product that you want to eliminate. I'm thinking as I'm listening of all the laws that we have that regulate narcotic trafficking, like fentanyl and heroin and crack cocaine and firearms. With all the laws that we have out there, look at what's going on in our country today. These rules and regulations that you want to put in place are going to create black markets. They're going to create organized crime. You're going to create crime by simply starting some sort of a prohibition. Now, if I'm reading things correctly, I believe 2 years ago, members of the New Generation Cartel out of Mexico, they are called the New Generation because they are now turning to tobacco. And they were arrested in your own backyard with fentanyl and ice methamphetamine. Intelligence sources, our sources, my sources indicate that not only were they there to set up that drug market, but
Mr.
those
Rotuno,
guys, those
I do want to let you
people.
know that your 2-minute time limit for testimony has expired. Can you please
I
quickly
apologize.
summarize your testimony?
Okay. They're in your backyard already. The Mexican tobacco cartel are in your backyard already trying to set up operations. I suggest you sit down with parents and law enforcement and try to get to a compromise. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Please go ahead. Oh,
Hello. The Hawaii State Youth Commission, sorry about my name.
Yes.
But-
Can you please state your name for the record?
Yeah, so, give me just a second, sorry. Hi, I'm Zoe Dwan, and I am speaking on behalf of the Hawaii State Youth Commission today. The Hawaii Youth Commission have submitted written testimony, but I apologize that it is late. But I will be going over our written testimony right now anyways. And so we are in strong support of SB 1447, mainly because in the past, counties have implemented several public health measures that have brought successful decreases in underage tobacco use, secondhand smoke, youth access, and other negative health effects. And we would like to emphasize that because e-cigarettes are not FDA-approved cessation devices, it is important that we recognize and prioritize the lives of our keiki, of our youth. And even if there are some health benefits for adults who are able to make that switch, we see that every adult who uses vaping to quit, 81 people that vape end up becoming a smoker. And this trade-off is unacceptable. Furthermore, to clarify some confusion, a lot of the evidence that have been brought up by oppositions originate from recent studies in which the researchers themselves have admitted that due to special circumstances in the past years, such as the pandemic, the statistics cannot be comparable to previous studies, and that we must take the numbers with a grain of salt. And again, we've seen that county laws have worked before during past years and with cigarettes and other tobacco products. We know that they're successful. So seeing that the bill will have a significant net benefit for our counties, our communities, and for our keiki, the Hawaii State Youth Commission strongly urges the committee to pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Keopu Rulitz, Director of Early Learning and Health Policy with Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks. My apologies, I was unable to submit in time, but I did want to offer oral testimony in strong support of this measure. One of the things that I won't go over, there's some great statistics already out there about the youth vaping epidemic, but one of the things I wanted to mention is there is a concern as far as early childhood. So the young children are often getting their hands on e-cigarettes, and it's actually causing issues for they're having to call poison control, and it's causing a public health issue for young children as well. So when we talk about this being a problem, a public health problem for the youth, it extends all the way down to our youngest keiki. So I wanted to make sure that we share that perspective and again stand in strong support. Mahalo again.
Thank you. Ms. Young?
Aloha, Akayaka Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. So the purpose of this act is to clarify that the county retains authority to regulate the sales of tobacco products, and I'm going to focus on the youth vaping epidemic as it relates to this bill. So, you know, it should be consideration for the state legislature that this should be a collaborative task force of the county, the Department of Health, the Department of Public Safety, and the Department of Education to manage this situation that has occurred. So for the Department of Public Safety, it is a concern because as I was talking to youths from schools that shall be unnamed to protect for privacy reasons, they mentioned that teachers, they do not, they kind of let things go because they're afraid of retaliation. So, and at these schools where the students that I spoke to personally attended, there's a lot of gang activity, okay? So we can speculate about if the gang activity is connected to the vapes, right? But we can only speculate. And yet, I would like to point to a research from from a nationally representative sample from a criminology professor from UTSA. So it highlights that students who vape, there are links with crime, and also the criminology factor explains that youths who vape are at a higher risk of engaging in crime.
My apologies, Ms. Young, your 2 minutes is up. Can you please summarize your testimony?
Okay, so therefore, to conclude, we really think that, you know, to help the youths and to address vaping, it should be a collaborative effort of the Department of Health, Department of Public Safety, Department of Education, and the nonprofit and student initiatives and health institutes and agencies. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, any questions? Representative Lowen.
Thanks. For Tina, I'm just curious, can you name your membership that you represent, or some of them? I mean, I was looking, it looks like your website is down. So
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So our membership is everybody from small mom and pop stores that are run by like two sisters, all the way up to box stores. We have online only sellers, we have luxury resellers, we have resellers who are nonprofits.
Can you do you have a list of the names of your membership so we know who you're here speaking for?
Yeah, I can provide you with that.
Okay. which of your members, on behalf of this bill, are you here for today? Like, who sells vapes?
Off the top, we have some grocery stores, Fulan, KTA. We have CVS, Walgreens. I'm not sure if they still sell or not. We have ABC stores. There's, I have to go down the list. I'm not sure what everybody has, but I know some of our members do sell these products.
Okay. Yeah, if you can, get me a list of your membership. I'd be interested to see that.
Okay.
But thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any further questions? Representative Nishi.
Yeah, I have a question for Department of Health. Hi, thanks for
Hi.
being here. So, who has the current enforcement responsibility for our state laws?
For the tobacco-related
Yeah.
state laws, we have the Department of Attorney General, the Office of Attorney General as primary enforcer.
Do you have any idea what they do to enforce this law, the laws?
They have an inspection unit, and they do inspections for tobacco stamps, and we also, of course, for the other clean under air policies, and they're also enforceable by police as well.
So if different counties have different laws,
Mhm.
who's going to do the enforcement?
So again, it would just depend on the particular type of law, but.
Well, I mean, in regards to these products.
So the same agencies that do it now.
So the Department of the Attorney General would have to enforce the laws for the counties?
Oh, I see what you're asking. If it's a county law, it'd be enforceable by the county enforcement, which would be the police, the prosecutors.
Oh, because I was concerned there was no testimony on behalf of the prosecutors or the police departments in regards to enforcement. So, part of my understanding was the reason we did statewide law was to have statewide enforcement continuity.
Historically, Hawaii does have pretty progressive tobacco control laws, and they did originally start on the county. So if you look at our clean indoor air laws, our smoke-free beaches, our smoke-free parks, they all started in individual counties. And then when all the counties had laws, the state felt the need to create equal enforcement. But they all started on the county level, and historically that's been the reason for our strong policies.
Right, and we recognize at the state level that enforcement statewide would be better done with one uniform law.
I think eventually, so that all of the, so there is coordination, but to start with, the counties do need the ability to tailor the policies to their respective needs, because we know that health disparities are often geographic, especially for tobacco. So the neighbor island counties have higher tobacco use rates, some rural counties especially. And so if they're not given the ability to create laws for themselves, then it's going to take a while for us to reduce those disparities.
Yeah. Does the department also believe that health disparities are economic?
Can you repeat that?
Does the department also believe that health disparities are also economically based?
There are ties to the economics or social determinants of health, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, right? So there is that also, that thought. And in your testimony, the areas you identified are some of our lowest economically based communities, and therefore there are other issues besides just I guess what you guys were identifying as I guess neighbor island communities or rural communities.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges on those islands.
So there are other issues that cause some of these health issues.
There are, yes, there's a lot of causes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thanks.
Chair.
Thank you. Members, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to SB 458 SD2 HD1 relating to geothermal royalties. First to testify on this measure, we have Don Chang from GLNR in opposition.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Sayama, members of the committee. Cardi Chang, Chief Engineer on behalf of Don Chang. I want to clarify our position that we do support more funds for geothermal exploration. However, we feel that it's our obligation to point out any potential flaws in a measure that could be counterproductive to the measure's intent. So I'll start with that. So our opposition is narrowly pertaining to a specific language on page 4, line 2, which requires the county to be paid 20% of the total annual royalties collected or $450,000, whichever is greater. This provision provides the county a minimum of $450,000 per year. We believe is a mathematical flaw that could result, under certain circumstances, less money being directed toward geothermal exploration. We provided the committee, for the committee's consideration, an amendment that will address this unintended consequence. We urge this committee to incorporate amendments and continue to move this bill along. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Zuri Aki from Office of Hawaiian Affairs in opposition on Zoom. Not present. We'll be moving on to Ashley, Kirkwitz from the County Council District 4 in opposition on Zoom.
A for effort in pronouncing my last name. It only looks intimidating. Thank you very much, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Sayama, for hosting this hearing today. Ashley Kirkowitz, Council Member for Hawaii County Council, District 4, Lower Puna, which is home to the Puna Geothermal Facility. Here, standing on the testimony that I've submitted in opposition to SB 458, which would decrease the county's royalty share. I'm happy to answer any questions folks might have about how the county has spent money to date.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair, committee members, Cameron Black on behalf of the Hawaii State Energy Office. We did submit late testimony, so my apologies. I'll briefly summarize some of our points. We share the concerns that were voiced earlier about the potential interpretation that this current draft could create a minimum amount of $450,000 that would go to the counties regardless of the amount of royalties collected, which could impact other royalties collectors. We do support the provision that would ensure that any royalties collected by the county are focused on the communities in which the projects are located that produce those royalties. We also support exploration and believe that informed by advanced discussions with communities, geothermal exploration done in a responsible manner is an essential part of our energy strategy, so we can understand the potential of geothermal on each island, which would help inform decisions on our energy situation moving forward just to in furtherance of our renewable energy goals. We've worked with UH in the past, and if this passes and the fund is established, we would intend to provide the royalties to UH to conduct further exploration. Finally, we do believe that it is appropriate to use state funds to explore and understand this state resource that could benefit our communities locally. And that said, we will continue to look for federal sources of funding to support further exploration. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there any questions?
Yep.
Representative Onishi.
Yes, DLNR. Hey, Cardi, good to see you again.
Good afternoon, Representative. Sorry.
Do you know how much annual royalties are provided by Puna Geothermal?
Yes.
Can you tell us what it is?
Okay, so well, I have the last 15 years, and every year varies because it depends on the production of power and the sale of electricity. So what we did, instead of giving you line by line, we took a cumulative average over the last 15 years. And that cumulative average, annual average, is that the total received is about $1.6 million a year. So DLR gets 50% of that. So our cut of that royalties every year is about $822,000.
What does those royalties go to provide for DLNR?
So those royalties, but the legislatively, they go into a special land development fund that funds the mineral resources program. The mineral resources program is charged pursuant to Chapter 182 to regulate the leasing, the disposition of mineral rights, and the regulatory aspect of the well drilling, the royalty payments, the distribution, and so forth. So basically, we are the regulatory arm of this public trust resource to make sure it's safely developed and mined.
What is the annual budget?
The annual budget, well, I'm just going to look at fiscal year, on average, we spend about $759,000 for that program, the mineral resources program. And that, let me be clear that that's purely what we spend for the existing mineral resource program. If this bill passes, there's going to be obviously more need, more mining leases, more leases that are going to come on board, which would involve other divisions, land division, it may involve other DLNR resources as well. But this $759,000 figure that I'm providing you is what we expended last year just purely for the regulating of the wells. It's a special fund, so when you look at this number, you got to make sure that you understand that there's a fringe of 60% on top of that. So
For the staff?
yeah, that's for payroll, and we call it other current expenses, totals about.
And that's taken out of the fund, or is that provided through the DLNR base budget?
Well, this is how the money flows. Okay, so we collect the royalties. 50% is retained by the department, 30% goes to the county, 20% goes to OHA. That's the way it's dispersed. The 50% it goes into the Special Land Development Fund. And the legislatively budgeted is X amount that comes to fund my program, which is for positions and operating costs, which is amounts to $759,000 on average a year.
Yeah, but my question was about the fringe. So the fringe is taken out of the special fund, or is it provided through the base budget of DLNR?
The fringe, anytime you fund payroll from a special fund, you have to add on 60%. So
Yeah.
that 60% is covered by the Special Land Development Fund.
Okay.
So legislatively, they account for X amount of payroll plus fringe, which funds our program.
Out of the special fund?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so this 756,000 includes all of the salaries plus all of the fringe
And the OCE, other current expenses.
and other expenses. So, are there any other royalties that are collected by the state?
Not at this time. Geothermal is the only royalties that we're collecting, because that's the only power plant in production at this time.
So there's no other mineral resources that DLNR manages that provides royalties?
None that I'm aware of.
Just geothermal?
Yeah, just geothermal at this point in time.
Yeah. So what did the department ask the legislature for funding to fund more geothermal research?
The department there wasn't an admin bill. This is a legislative initiative which we support, to fund more. The intent was to provide the university some additional funds to go out and explore potential geothermal sites for future development.
Okay, so the department had no input into taking the money from the county share
No.
or to take the money from the DLNR share?
Well, our input for taking it from the linear shares, we need it. So we're going to oppose any reduction in our share, our 50% share, because we bear the load of the regulatory aspect. So we need to fund our positions to ensure this resource is safely mined. So we have input when there's a proposal to reduce our 50% share. And we've provided that input in the past.
But you don't have any opinion about taking the county share?
That's not really, as long as we have our share to fund our positions and our mandate, that's where our position stands.
Yeah. So you have 4 people. Are they all filled positions?
There are actually 4 filled. There's another position that's on island, he's on island, and that person just passed away last year. So we're in the process of filling that position as well, but we're going through the recruitment process for that position.
So in essence, there's 5 positions?
5 positions, correct. But that
Not 4?
Is 5 positions, but Representative, that number I gave you, 759,000, it reflects only the payroll and others cost for the 4 positions. If you want that 5th position, it's about another 133,000, which includes fringes.
Oh, this is not an average. This is...
The 759 is an average over the last 15 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is an average expense like the average royalties, right?
Correct, correct. Yeah.
So, but it is for 5 positions.
No. The technicality behind why I'm giving you 4 and 1 is because they're under different LNR program IDs. So although they serve the purpose of regulating geothermal, they're in 2 different BJ tables. So in totality, the cost of running a geothermal, the regulatory aspect is going to be somewhere around $900,000 in totality for 5 positions and operating costs.
So where does this additional money come from?
Additional money for the exploration?
For the total cost to regulate geothermal?
Okay, so, no, I'm just telling you what we currently expend on an average year is about $900,000 for 5 positions and operating costs to regulate the geothermal program.
So you've had a geothermal royalty or geothermal regulatory program that has been in existence for over 20 years.
It's been, the geothermal has been in existence since the early 80s.
Right.
There's been times where the mineral resource program was abolished, and we had to just regulate with existing staff, and it was restored, I think, in 2009. We got the bodies back because there was a lot more production. So there was always a need to regulate. It's just that there was gaps in this 20-year period or so, a 30-year period actually, where there was positions and they got abolished, and we had to request for additional, restore those positions.
But it takes 4 people to regulate 1 facility and 1 mineral resource?
Well, we have a geologist, a mineral resource specialist, we have a clerical, a secretary, and we have an engineer. So the engineer...
And they all work on regulating geothermal every day?
Well, it's called the Mineral Resources Program. So because the geologist has a specific expertise, we also have the geologist advise the engineer on rockfall issues as well. Rockfall, we have a lot of rockfall issues. So the rockfall program falls under the purview of that Mineral Resources Program.
Okay, and the other guys work 40 hours a week on geothermal?
Yes.
Regulation?
That is correct.
Including the engineer?
The engineer focuses mostly on contracts and rockfall type of projects.
So not geothermal.
Well, mineral resources could involve many type of geology. You know.
I understand, I understand. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of how much cost is associated with actual regulatory compliant or regulatory oversight and compliance for geothermal, because that's where you're taking the money from.
The money really comes from the Special Land Development Fund, which is a broad fund that has many uses.
Well, I mean, in essence, right, 50% is going to DLNR, and you're telling us for the management of geothermal, the geothermal program, right? But now you're telling me that you have 4 people, but not all of them work full-time on geothermal regulation. And I mean, I don't care where the department puts the money and then gives it back to you. You know, that's not really material. My concern is you guys are supporting taking the county's money away, where the county is actually using the money to support the community and the island where the resource is at, but you guys are using the money to support other issues that are not related to geothermal. And yet you're saying we need the 50%. If you guys really wanted to encourage geothermal development, you'd look at your budget and you'd say, okay, we should be taking some of this because it doesn't pertain to geothermal expenses and use it to help support the university for more exploration. You understand where I'm getting at?
Yes, I do.
Okay. The other thing is, are you aware of the University of Hawaii Hilo geologists that worked on a statewide geothermal resource study?
Are you referring to Don Thomas?
Yes.
Yes.
You are aware of that?
I'm aware that he got a lot of funding from the Department of Energy through a
Right.
grant, and he used that money for exploration in various
Right.
parts of the Big Island and Maui.
And what is that report, what is that report being used for? Or that study?
Well, I think that's a question for Don, but I know he made it public for potential developers to look at because it's public information, and a prospective developer can use that to determine whether or not they want to pursue development in Hawaii. You know, so they don't have to go out and drill wells themselves or do exploration themselves. It really cuts the cost down for a prospective developer.
Right. Has the department put out any requests for proposals or requests for information regarding geothermal development?
Well, let me go back to our legal authority. Our legal authority is to regulate. It's not to promote more exploration. So when you look at the provisions in Chapter 182, it's really a leasing, regulating to make sure it's safe for the environment and sustainability of the resource.
Okay,
That's
but
not
you
really
guys
the
are
department's role.
testifying in support of more research and development.
Well, I think from a statewide goal, you know, obviously more geothermal is going to help the state achieve its goals. So I think we're coming from that perspective, not so much from our department's mandate perspective, but just overall, more geothermal is going to help everyone. It's going to help our renewable energy goals. It's going to help OHA, county, state, as well as this new fund that's been created. I think that's kind of our angle on this, our support.
Unless you keep taking the royalties away from the county.
No, I think we're just saying that we need X amount to run to fulfill our mandate. I'm giving you numbers.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for where this money is going to be taken from.
Right. Yeah. So, who in your mind would be the state agency that should be promoting more geothermal development or exploration?
Well, if you align the goals, I don't know, Ken, you want to talk about 201, your mandate under DBIDS goes to promote, just in general, geothermal or renewable energy to meet our goals in 2045. That may be one entity that could do that.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the?
Yeah, I know. I was gonna get to you. Thanks, Cardi. I really appreciate your candor.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're
thanks.
welcome. Thank you.
Chair, if I might,
Please go ahead.
please, thank you for
Yeah.
being here.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
So you've heard my line of questioning, right, for
Mhm.
DLNR?
Mhm.
Okay, so my question is, you are with the
Hawaii State Energy Office.
Hawaii State Energy Office. Have you folks put out any requests for information or proposals for geothermal development?
Not recently. We've supported
Ever?
studies. We've.
Well, not studies.
Yes, ever.
I'm talking about an actual request for information or an RFP for development.
No, I don't believe we have done that.
Do you know why?
No. I'm sorry, I don't.
Is your agency aware of the public climate for geothermal development?
I think we are. Yeah, we're
And
aware.
What is that climate in the public?
I think there's support and there's concerns. I think there's both that need to be looked at.
Has any community expressed willingness to support geothermal development?
I can't really answer that. I don't know for sure.
Hello?
You know,
Because
Can you hear me? Hello?
I'm sorry, can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
I guess because the agency has not really focused on geothermal development.
well, we've done a lot of community-wide outreach and we're increasing that much more. We have already, we've taken the step with a new Wayfinders program of placing people on individual islands that can help get information from the communities there and provide information on what we're trying to do as far as renewable energy. I don't know if we've done a community-by-community questionnaire, are you supportive of geothermal or not? I don't know. You know, we've obviously heard a lot over the years from the Puna community members, and I know the representative is here today, but we haven't done the community-by-community across the state.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Members, any further questions? Chair.
DLNR. Thank you for answering all of our questions. So the one member of your office that was on the Big Island died. So when was the last time any member of your staff visited Puna Geothermal?
When was any one of our staff over there? I believe we went out there late last year. They're still drilling, so it's an ongoing process. We don't need to be out there every single day of the year. And we're also, because of the passing, we're looking at other ways that we can regulate the activity. You know, how often we gotta be out there? Does it every day or is it 3 times a week? We still think a presence on the island is needed and that body is needed, because if there's something that happens, it's a lot quicker response time. But to answer your question, we've been out there and we're trying to do a lot of things remotely now, virtually, that we can speak to the field, where there's fly our people out as needed, right? But we're still gonna need some presence on there. So we're trying to fill that position as we speak.
And what percentage of the time is the engineer involved in the work?
Well, when it comes to contracts, we do a lot of contracts, because before people may sound like a lot of positions, but there's a lot of inquiries that come about geothermal, and we have a lot of inquiries that talk about new geothermal. So we're constantly entertaining requests. The geothermal engineer, I would say about 20% of his time is focused on contracts that support the geothermal program. So there is some overlap. He's not just doing rockfall projects and not even tied into the geothermal program.
Okay. What were the other positions you have in the office?
The mineral resource specialist, we're gonna, that person is actually starting on March 31st. Someone just left about 4 months ago. And we have a geologist that is the supervisor. And then the last position is the secretary too.
So there's a geologist and a mineral specialist.
That is correct. They're different roles. They're slightly different roles.
And how are they different?
Well, the geologist has the geology license to actually decide and make calls. The mineral resources is support to that position, and he's has a different set of skills, a different skill set. It's more on the planning, reviewing, and vetting the applications that come in. He doesn't have the credentials to be a geologist, but he supports the geologist in.
So how many
various-
applications have come in?
Well, PGV can drill up to, I think, 28 wells. They're up to about 22 now. So under their current permit, they still have the capacity to expand that. Right now, I think they're drilling KS-22, if I'm not mistaken. So anytime a permit comes in, we have to review it. And because it's important for renewable energy, we need to turn it around pretty quickly. So we have a certain period, I think it was 90 days to turn it around. So we have to look, it was only 2 guys looking at it, and then we may get permits for this well, another well, especially after a lava event, when they were shut down for about 18 months or so. Once they were reopened, there was a flurry of applications that came in because they wanted to get their plant up and running again. And it's really for the greater good of the Big Island. You know, when you look at how much firm electricity they're producing, it's over like 20-25% of firm renewable energy for the Big Island.
Okay, thank you very much.
Members, are there?
Yeah, I have
Representative
one
Onishi.
follow-up.
Yeah.
For the County of Hawaii, Ashley, are you still there?
Aloha, Rep. Great to see you.
Yes, good to see you too. Thanks for being here. Can you summarize what the county uses its share for geothermal
Absolutely.
royalties?
Sure. And I just wanted to share with you that since 2000, the County of Hawaii has received $10.3 million. It fluctuates every year based on how much energy is produced by Puna Geothermal. We have received as high as $950,000. In years past, we've received things like $70,000. Obviously, when the eruption happens, we didn't get any royalties. But again, we've received a total of $10.3 million. It supports a couple of programs, the first being the geothermal relocation program. So anybody that would like to permanently relocate outside of the area because they feel their quality of life is negatively impacted because they're living next to a geothermal facility, they have the ability to apply for a relocation program through the planning department. We've supported 27 relocations to date, I believe at a total of $3.6 million. Let me see here. And it also supports a community benefits fund. Through that funding, we have been able to create a Pahoa Council office, and that was done under former council member Emelina Ole. We've purchased public transportation buses to be servicing the Puna community. It's supported park security at Poho'iki Beach Park. We've also been able to create a transfer station for the Pahoa community. So things that are infrastructure investments that support improving quality of life by residents that are impacted by geothermal operations, the county has been able to support that. We have a balance of about $3.6 million in the fund.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to SB 1131 SD1. Okay, first to testify on this measure, I'm sorry, I don't think we have a testimony for this bill. So we'll move on to SB 463, SD2 relating to property development. First to testify on this measure, we have Lindsay Garcia, Hawaii Realtors, with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lindsay Garcia from the Hawaii Association of Realtors. So we appreciate the intent, but we believe that Section 3 of this measure may not be necessary. This is the section of the bill requiring sellers of real property to disclose the existence of U.S. Postal Service mailbox. The United States Postal Service delivery is already considered a material fact on our seller's real property disclosure statement form. On the form, there are options for the seller to indicate that mail delivery is either via P.O. Box, community cluster, individual curbside mailbox, or other, with a space for the seller to describe the situation of that property. So we ask that this particular section be removed from this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the persons here to testify. Are there any other persons here to testify? Oh, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members. Keaton Kleinhans, condominium specialist on behalf of the Hawaii Real Estate Commission. We submitted brief comments. We sincerely apologize for the late submittal. In short summary, some condominiums contain more than just residential units. Some examples include parking stalls, storage units, and even livestock grazing property. But for these particular units, the cost to satisfy the proposed mailbox requirements may not provide the same level of consumer protection compared to the residential, agricultural, farm dwellings, and commercial units. Our written testimony provides some clarifying language to Section 514B33 on page 6, line 8 for your consideration. Again, we apologize for the late submittal. We do have copies of the testimony for committee members. Thank you, and available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, any questions? Seeing none.
Can I ask a question
go
of the Hawaii Realty?
Yeah.
Did I read this bill correctly that it requires a new subdivision to indicate the location of the post office box? I mean, the mailbox?
So we actually don't have a position on the rest of the measure of this particular bill, just on Section 3. But from what I read in the testimony, it sounds like there's this question of federal jurisdiction versus county jurisdiction. Unfortunately, it looks like the counties aren't here to address that particular concern.
Okay. I was just wondering if you knew how the different counties figure out where a mailbox could be located?
Unfortunately, I do not know.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Chair.
Okay, members, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to SB 1206, SD2 HD1, relating to deposits of public funds. First to testify on this measure, we have Iris Ikeda, Commissioner for DCCA Department of Financial Institutions, with comments.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Iris Ikeda. I'm the Commissioner for the Division of Financial Institutions for the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. So we are offering comments on the selection criteria by the Director of Budget and Finance, who has oversight over the placement of public funds in our depository institutions as it relates to the consideration of affordable housing loans. So we suggest that the criteria be expanded to include residential housing projects that are allowable under our banking statute, which identified, which include investments for low-income housing as defined by the Internal Revenue Code. So we think that that would be a broader definition for the director to use. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Denise Matsubara from Hawaii Housing Finance, DBED, with comments.
Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, gentlemen, Juan on behalf of HHFDC, we stand on our written testimony.
Thank you. Okay, any other persons here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Members, actually, I would like to move back to SB 1131. I believe there is someone, if there's anyone to testify on this measure. Okay, just making sure. Okay, thank you, members. We'll be taking a short recess for decision-making. Recess.
Action Commerce for decision-making, March 22nd, 2023. First measure is Senate Bill 696 relating to workers' compensation. Chair's recommendation is to move this as is. Members, questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, unamended.
Voting on SB 696 SD1 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair, Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Amato?
Aye.
Representative Biladi?
Aye.
Representative Hashem? Excused. Representative Hussey Burdick?
Aye.
Representative Gates? Excused. Representative Lowen?
Aye.
Representative Onishi?
Aye.
Representative Tam? Excused. Representative Pure?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Senate Bill 839, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1, related to renewable energy. Chair's recommendation is that we, on page 19, K12, reference is made to section 269-146, and it actually should be 149. So we'll make that change. We'll go ahead and delete sections 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Not 2, oh, I'm sorry. Section 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I'd like to add a new section into the bill that brings back a former request by the PUC for additional increase in their ceiling balance on the remaining Public Utilities Commission Special Fund, and have the commission pay for the additional position out of the additional ceiling. Members, any questions or comments?
Yes. I believe this
Representative
measure. Thank you, Chair. I believe this measure would increase the cost of electricity, so I'll be voting no.
Okay. The chair's recommendation is that we don't take the money out of the ratepayers and to take it out of a increased ceiling balance. So there will be no increased cost to the ratepayers at this point. So, however, vote your conscience. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, members, as amended.
Voting on SB 839 SD2 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, knowing the presence of Representative Gates and the excused absences of Representatives Hashem and Tam. Any members voting no? Any members voting with reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Representative Amato. Reservations for Representative Hussey Burdick. Reservations for Representative Pure. Okay, thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Senate Bill 1534, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1, related to transportation. Chair's recommendation is that we adopt DOT's amendments. Members, any questions or comments? Oh, and also, I'm sorry, technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style as well. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Voting on SB 1534 SD2 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, knowing the excused absences of Representatives Tam and Hashem. Any members voting no? Any members voting with reservations? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Senate Bill 63, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1, related to nurses. Recommendation of the Chair is to adopt the Hawaii Health Association proposed amendments that were also echoed by several other entities, and then create a 10 business day time frame for issuing temporary permits, licenses that meet the approval of the board. Members, questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Voting on SB 68 SD2 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, Knowing the excused absences of Representatives Hashem and Tam, any members voting no? Any members voting with reservations? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Senate Bill 239, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1, related to early learning accreditation. Chair's recommendation is that we include the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools as to the list of accreditors. And that's it. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Voting on SB 239 SD2 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absences of Representatives Hashem and Tam. Any members voting no? No for Representative Purick. Any members voting with reservations? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Senate Bill 11.3, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1, related to labeling of products. Chair's recommendation is we defer this measure for the time being. Senate Bill 745, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1, related to agriculture. Other technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. And also, I noted in the bill that Hawaiian diacritical marks were not used in the names of the places, and I would like that changed. So those are the two recommendations. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Voting on SB 745 SD1 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendment, noting the excused absences of Representatives Hashem and Tam. Any members voting no? Any members voting with reservations? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Senate Bill 717, Senate Draft 1, relating to alcohol. Chair would like the definition of beer in Section 224-D-1 should be changed to be amended to be consistent with the changes made in the current measure, and also defect dated for June 30, 3000. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Voting on SB 717 SD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting excused absences of Representatives Hashem and Tam. Any members voting no? Any members voting with reservations? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Senate Bill 687, Senate Draft 1. Chair's recommendation is we defer this measure. Senate Bill 1447, related to tobacco products. Recommendations that we defect dated to June 30, 3000. Members, questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Voting on SB 1447 SD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absences of Representatives Hashem and Tam. Any members voting no? Any members voting with reservations? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Senate Bill 458, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1, related to geothermal royalties. Chair's recommendations that we change the percentages to the county hosting the geothermal plant, 30%. The new special fund will get 20%, the DLNR 30%, and 20% to OHA. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended. Oh, I'm sorry. What's the question? Huh? No? Okay, sorry.
Voting on SB 458, SD2 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absences of Representatives Hashem and Tam. Any members voting no? Any members voting with reservations? Reservations for Representative Purick. Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Senate Bill 1131, Senate Draft 1, related to timeshare plans. Chair's recommendation, we defer this measure. Senate Bill 463, Senate Draft 2, related to property development, will include the City and County of Honolulu's amendments and remove the severability clause. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Voting on SB 463 SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absences of Representatives Hashem and Tam. Any members voting no? Any members voting with reservations? Sorry, no for Representative Purick. Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. And finally, Senate Bill 1206, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. I'll defer this. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.